On January 3rd, 2026, the world was absolutely stunned. We all watched as a supposedly impenetrable fortress just crumbled. Venezuela was armed to the teeth, right? We're talking advanced Russian and Chinese air defense systems. And yet, somehow, in just a matter of hours, U.S. forces were in and out. They flew right into Venezuelan airspace, landed in the capital, and extracted the president. So the big question on everyone's mind is, how on earth did they do it?
I mean, think about it. Venezuela had spent billions building what they thought was this state-of-the-art air defense shield. But as we all saw, that shield was completely shattered. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what went down, how the US pulled it off, and maybe most importantly, why the real shockwaves from this raid aren't being felt in Caracas. They're being felt thousands of miles away, in Beijing.
So let's talk about the raid itself. It's been nicknamed the Caracas Heist, and honestly, that name fits perfectly. It was a true lightning raid. You had U.S. Delta Force operators backed by a whole swarm of aircraft and naval power, and they just went in and grabbed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The speed, the precision, it left military analysts everywhere just speechless. And get this, 0 American casualties reported. I mean, think about what that means. This was a flawless operation against what was supposed to be one of the most heavily defended countries in all of Latin America. They got in, they secured their target, and they got out. Clean. So that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How did they just waltz past all that sophisticated Russian and Chinese technology? Well, the answer isn't about the stuff you could see. You know, the helicopters and the soldiers. The real story, the real victory, was in an invisible war that was won long before a single boot ever touched the ground.
Yeah, to really get how this was even possible, you have to understand that the physical raid, the part with the helicopters and the troops, that was just the final move on the chessboard. It was the last act of a much, much bigger play. We're talking about a full-on, multi-domain assault. This wasn't a fair fight, not even close. It was a systematic takedown of an entire country's ability to even defend itself. The main weapon here, it wasn't a bomb or a missile. It was the electromagnetic spectrum. The US didn't just fight Venezuela's army. They literally unplugged its entire nervous system. And they did it with a super sophisticated, layered campaign of electronic warfare.
Okay, so this whole thing followed a pretty devastating 4-step playbook. Step 1, surveil. Long before the raid, US space and cyber assets had already created a perfect map of every single radar, every command post. They knew where everything was. Step 2, blind. That's when the EA-18G Growlers came in and just blasted all those radar systems with electronic noise. Step 3, deafen. At the same time, EC-130s were jamming all their military communications. No one could talk to anyone. And the final blow, Step 4, paralyze. US Cyber Command hits the power grid, and just like that, Caracas is plunged into total darkness and chaos.
The result? I mean, it was total paralysis. The Venezuelan military was completely cut off. They couldn't see the attack coming, they couldn't talk to each other to figure out what to do, and they couldn't get orders from anyone. They were, for all intents and purposes, completely helpless. Which brings us to all that fancy high-tech hardware. You know, the billions of dollars Venezuela spent on what they were told were cutting-edge defense systems from Russia and China. What happened to all of it?
Well, the after-action report is it's a laundry list of catastrophic failures. That premier Russian S-300 system, it never even turned on. The Buk missiles, they were destroyed right on their launchers. And the Chinese gear, the stuff they bragged about, that JY-27A anti-stealth radar and the FK-3 missiles, completely and utterly useless. They didn't see a thing. The failure was so complete, so absolute, that it almost became a joke online. Analysts were just blunt, saying these highly touted systems were nothing more than expensive decorations. Basically, just high-tech scrap metal that failed its very first real-world test in the most spectacular way possible.
But here's the kicker. This wasn't just a one-off bad day for these systems. If you start looking at other recent conflicts, you start to see a very troubling pattern emerge for Chinese military exports, especially their air defense gear. And this timeline, it's just damning. Let's walk through it. 2019, Chinese systems in Pakistan completely miss Indian jets flying right over them. 2022, they can't even stop a single accidental missile from India. 2024, Iranian drones just fly right past them, no problem. And now, 2026, we have the complete and total system meltdown in Venezuela. You see, this isn't a fluke, it's a track record.
So, all of this, It leads us to the single most important question, the big takeaway here. What does a raid in the Caribbean have to do with the biggest, most dangerous geopolitical flashpoint on the entire planet?
And this is the absolute core of it. The reason Beijing is panicking right now isn't that they lost an ally in Maduro. It's because this raid was a devastating, real-world, prime-time demonstration that their technology failed, catastrophically. And this is the same family of technology they are counting on to defend their own homeland. So now, you have this massive, high-stakes question that military planners in both Washington and Beijing are grappling with. Was the failure in Venezuela just a case of them using cheaper, less effective export-grade systems? Or, and this is the scary part for them, does it reveal a fundamental flaw, a critical vulnerability in their entire air defense philosophy that could be exploited against their top-tier systems in a war over Taiwan?
And that leaves us with the one question that changes everything. If U.S. stealth and electronic warfare can completely blind Chinese-made radar in Venezuela, can it do the exact same thing in the Taiwan Strait? See, the raid on Caracas was never really just about Venezuela. It might have just shown the entire world the playbook for the next great power conflict.